So Control is my first book. It's a young adult science fiction, and it takes place 150 years in the future in the Nebraska, Iowa region. And it centers around a girl who's a bit of a, she's a science geek, she's a science prodigy. She is a molecular biologist, and actually in the beginning of the story she loses her family, and she has to use her brain to figure out how to get her sister back. So at this point in time, they have outlawed any kind of genetic manipulation of human DNA, and so human DNA is supposed to be very pure. And if you were born with these artificial mutations, you're not really allowed to live. And when her sister is taken, she finds out that her sister has one of these illegal mutations, but she doesn't know what it is. So her job is to figure out why in order to get her back. And part of the reason why I created the book in such a way is that I wanted young women to sort of feel like they had a hero who was not necessarily beautiful and strong, but had to really use her intelligence to save the day. So it's kind of the antithesis of the usual, comic book heroes who are all big and muscly and everything. Like, she's scrawny, she doesn't consider herself very pretty, but she's a hero.
Anomaly is about Josie, who finds out she is a part of a secret race, Oculi, and they have these special abilities. It is based, their abilities are based on a quantum physics theory. Well, actually, it's kind of a combination of theories, Schrodinger's cat experiment and the Copenhagen interpretation, and it's kind of a combination of those two. I make everything very understandable, but I know some people are like, but so basically it's what they observe through their eyes is what becomes reality. So they can either push something into reality, create something, make it manifest, or they can retract it. They can pull it back, delete it, erase it from reality. Or there are very, very few of those who can do both, and they are anomalies. And she is one of them. And she finds out that not only is she one of those, but she actually had her parents were scientists, are scientists, and she ended up with this inoculation that makes her abilities a little more heightened. So, and as of right now, she's probably the most powerful person on the earth.
Well, I know that as far as like the influence that Nebraska has had on my writing, I didn't really dive into creative writing until I got to Omaha. And so Omaha is very near and dear to my heart when it comes to the creative process, because this is where I flourished and this is where I found the most support for writing that I had ever had before. Omaha is a very close-knit community, and when it comes to the arts, there's so many people who are practicing and encouraging of other people. And when it was funny because I'd started writing a couple of essays and I'd gotten one or two published, but they were in medical journals. And I'd heard about this writing group that was pairing doctors with poets and writers from the community to try to get them to be a little bit more creative. And that program was called the 7 Doctors Project. So I had heard about it, and I had just had my 3rd child, and she was a little baby, and I was back at work, and it was really kind of stressful being in the office environment and seeing patients again and having my family expand. And I started writing poetry. I like to blame it on the hormones. I just started writing poetry. And then I heard about this writing group, and I thought, I've kind of wanted to do this my whole life, but most of my life has been spent in school, in science, working on getting into medical school, and then working on getting to residency, and then surviving residency. And for the first time, I had a little bit more time on my hands, and I kind of took this breath, and I thought, this is something I really want to do, and here's an opportunity. And it was this big, scary leap, but I decided to join the group. It was kind of terrifying at the time because you're so used to doing one line of work and being in one sort of professional persona, and then to have to switch off and try something different that's creative was a big shift for me. So once I did start writing, and at least when I started writing fiction, I was constantly giving homage to Omaha. So the first book I ever wrote took place in Omaha, and then Control actually takes place in a modern Omaha, like 150 years in the future, although it's pretty hard to recognize. But that was also a little bit of my nod to the place that kind of got things all started for me.
Themes or topics. A lot of mine has to do with kind of coming of age and figuring out exactly who you are and being okay with that. Josie, the main character in Anomaly, and then again the main character in Enigma soon, she is a sci-fi nerd. She is into pulp culture. She references Star Wars and Star Trek, and she says, you know, thank Thor and dear Loki. And she doesn't change that for anyone. And not only is she kind of a nerd and a geek, she is a young woman who is strong. And not just with, you know, strength and these abilities that she finds out she has, but she's strong mentally. She's smart. She's intelligent. She uses her brain. She's smarter than I am. But I guess when I was creating her, and you know, you develop a character, and you're like, okay, what do I need her to be? And I'm like, gosh, I need her to be the characters that I liked reading when I was growing up. And I always come back to Jo from Little Women, and I loved Jo. She was headstrong. She was tough as nails. She stood her own ground. You know, that's what I liked reading. And I think that's what, whether it's, you know, boys or girls, females, gender fluid, it doesn't matter. If you're reading that, you want a strong character, but she also has flaws, and she has weaknesses, and she's vulnerable. So I guess, you know, one of the themes, I guess, is you can be who you are, and you can embrace it, and you don't have to be ashamed of this title given to you, nerd, or this label. And labels don't always fit in these pretty neat little boxes. Just because you're a nerd doesn't mean that's a bad connotation anymore, because I think times have really changed. So, and I say that all the time, like I say that on my website, my blog. You know, I say often that I'm a sci-fi nerd. I don't think that's negative at all. I find that positive. And my kid plays tennis. He's a tennis nerd. Basically, I'm trying to change that perception of nerd into passion. You're passionate about something. And there's nothing wrong with passionate. Passionate gets people places. It gets things done. It encourages and inspires others. So I think it's more, you know, finding your place in this coming of age, but also really being okay with who you are. You know, it depends on, now that I'm published, that's changed a little. Like I used to just, you know, write. My husband would work long hours and I would write while he was at work. And it was just kind of, you know, like that, oh, this is fun. Now I have deadlines. Now it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this book is due. I have to write. Okay, so I have boys. So guys, when this is closed, you don't come in with, you know, don't interrupt mommy. So it's kind of changed, mm-hmm. and I see it kind of evolving the more serious I have gotten about my career. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Tonya and I have both had to deal with writing things and revising books on really short deadlines that have been the kind where you think this isn't physically possible. Like people can't do this, and we've done it. So
we're
that,
alive.
yes, yeah, alive somehow. And I think that one of the things that I have figured out lately is that I do work pretty well on a deadline. I think that if someone says, you have plenty of time in the world to do this, I'm not as efficient, and I start reading the news and doing all sorts of things. But on a deadline, I do work a little bit better. But then, I get more stressed out, and my hair starts to fall out, and things like fun things like that start to happen. But I can write pretty much anywhere. So I can write at home, I can write in bed, I can write at the kitchen table, I can write at scooters or coffee shops, pretty much anywhere. What I find is that my mind just has to be in the right state. So there are times where I just have so many things that I know I need to do, and if I sit down and open up my laptop, it's just not going to get done. So for me, it's more of a state of mind, not where I need to be writing. It's like, can I actually focus on this and do that? So that's been kind of the issue lately.
Welcome to the Jane Pope Gesge Heritage Room of Nebraska Authors. My name is Erin Willis, and I'm the curator of this collection. The Heritage Room is a unique part of Lincoln Libraries. It's a privately funded collection. It's funded by an endowment that was created by the Nebraska Literary Heritage Association, and it supports the Heritage Room in their mission of preserving, promoting, and celebrating Nebraska authors. So I'd like to thank the NLHA members who are here, and to thank them for their membership to the NLHA and the programming events they do, and their fundraising efforts that allow us to have the Ames reading series and the other programs that link authors and readers together. One of the most important functions of the Heritage Room is to celebrate and promote literature by and about Nebraska authors, and we do that by collecting and maintaining vertical files for Nebraska authors and databases, and we have 4,000 authors represented in this collection who we try to keep up with and have information available to their readers and fans. We also celebrate our authors by providing a forum for authors to share their books and for allowing the community to learn about the great literary talent in our state. The John H. Ames Reading Series has been providing the forum for authors and the community to share and learn for the past 30 years. Catherine Kidwell was our first Ames reader in June of 1985. The Ames Reading Series has a proud history and has included some of the great authors of Nebraska. Today is the 211th Ames Reading event. This is my first program, my first Ames Reading event. And 5 City TV has been filming the event since 2011. So these can be viewed, this program and other programs can be viewed on the 5 City TV video and on-demand site. And for our video on-demand viewers right now, I'd like to thank you for tuning in and invite you to come visit the Heritage Room. We're on the 3rd floor of Bennett Martin Public Library, which is 136 South 14th Street in downtown Lincoln. Our public service hours are Tuesday through Friday, noon to 3 p.m., and Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. We are currently in the Heritage Room during our Sunday business hours, and today we're featuring Tonya Kuper and Lydia Kang. Tonya Kuper released her first book, Anomaly, in November 2014 through Entangled Teen. She lives in Omaha, Nebraska with her 2 sons and her husband. She is a self-proclaimed music junkie, Star Wars nerd, and loves all things science fiction. Her appreciation for these things show through in her books, with her always relevant pop culture references, and she also enjoys interacting with her friends and fans on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and you can see her also on her website, tonyakuper.com. Lydia Kang is our other author. She is an author of young adult fiction, poetry, and narrative nonfiction, and she practices medicine at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Her work has been published in JAMA, the Annals of Internal Medicine, Canadian Medical Association Journal, Journal of Internal Medicine, and Great Weather for Media. Her young adult science fiction novels, Control and Catalyst, were published by Penguin Random House in 2013 and 2015. She currently resides in Omaha as well with her husband and her 3 children. So they both had to drive here from Omaha, and we're glad to have them today and grateful that they made the trip. So I'll open the floor to Lydia and Tonya to talk about their books.
Hi. I chose a couple short passages to read, but before I do, I was going to give a little background on my book, Anomaly. Anomaly, and I'm sorry for those of you who have just heard this, but Anomaly is about Josie Harper, who on her 17th birthday is dumped by her boyfriend, and then she finds out that she is, I guess, a part of this secret race amongst humans who have these abilities that are based on quantum physics theories, kind of combination of Schrodinger's cat experiment and the Copenhagen interpretation. And I know that I get a lot of people going, I really at first didn't really, well, I know Schrodinger's cat experiment, but I didn't know any of the others. And so, but I make it all very understandable. She she learns that she is a part of this group of people, and they have these abilities basically to create reality. So they observe with their eyes. This group is called oculi, and they observe. They can either push reality. They can make something exist, manifest. If I want a drink of water, my water, which I could use a drink of water, Lydia. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. See, I have the ability. I could push this bottle of water. I could think, blink, and it's the act of observation that actually makes it come into being. It's a different part of the brain that is activated that most humans don't have that ability to tap into. So basically, she can make anything appear that doesn't have a soul, or she can make it disappear. Or since the bookshelves and the books don't have souls, I could retract those. I could make those disappear. Or you could be really super special and you could do both, and they're called anomalies. So she is, of course, super special, and she has both abilities. And she is tasked with having to do something really important to her entire secret race. They are on the brink of a civil war. They're basically like two sides, a good side and a bad side, isn't there always? And she has to kind of stand up for her side, the resistance, against these horrible people in, they call it the consortium. It's Schrodinger's consortium. And so she has to train really fast within a week's time and figure out how to control these new abilities. Of course, she has a trainer come in and train her. And of course, he is super hot. And, and she is 17 and he is 19. And oh my goodness, the biceps. So she not only has to deal, though, with these everyday problems, like being dumped by her boyfriend, her first boyfriend ever, and some issues at home, because she, every family has some issues. And not only does she have to deal with that, but she has to then learn how to control these abilities, manipulate reality. And then what does that mean to her entire life, her entire existence, humans' entire existence? And then she has to grapple this entire idea about what does it really mean to have power? Would you use that power? What should you use that power for? And then realizing, too, that there are people who have a lot of power who you probably don't want them to have that much power. So if you really look a little bit deeper into the book, you will find all sorts of themes based on, the idea of power, when it's good, when it's bad, when it should be used, and maybe when it shouldn't. And then there are also themes of I guess you could say self-acceptance, but also kind of just owning who you are. She is a self-proclaimed sci-fi nerd. I get that. That's me. But nerd has a different connotation than it used to have. At least that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to kind of proclaim and let my readers know. Or if you go on my website, I constantly am trying to push that, hey, it's okay to be a nerd. Nerd does not need to have a negative connotation. Nerd actually, to me, and I think a lot of people, means passion. You can be a dance nerd, you can be a sci-fi nerd, you can be a math nerd. It doesn't mean that what you are doing or saying or believe in has any less meaning than anybody else's passion. It just means that you are passionate about it. And the one thing about passion is that it leads to getting things done. And it encourages others, it inspires others. So it's okay to be passionate. It's okay to be a nerd. So that's kind of, if you really kind of dive a little bit deeper and look a little below the surface of this story with lots of action and pushing and retracting reality, you can really dig out some themes that are relevant not only to teens, but also to anyone. My sixth grader has read the book, though there are a few choice words that I don't usually use in front of him. And so we've, of course, had those discussions. I would say, Lydia and I were discussing earlier that I think, she said she thinks about a third of her readers are adult. And I would say mine's probably right about there as well. Because young adult books does not, just because of it's in the category or genre young adult book, it doesn't mean that it is only for young adults. It's not only for teenagers. It simply means the book is about young adults. There's something for everyone to learn from reading a novel. It's just what you choose to get out of it. And it doesn't matter the age. So that's my little spiel. I go off sometimes on Facebook on that. I'm like, just read it. It doesn't matter. Not just mine, any young adult fiction. So that's a little bit about the story. There is a lot of action. There's a lot of sci-fi goodness in it. There's also, since she's a sci-fi nerd, there's a lot of references to Star Wars and Star Trek and Avengers. She says, "Thank Thor" and "Dear Loki." So she's very much in this world doing some otherworldly things. And that's also kind of the other thing that, I want to give, I guess it doesn't matter who's reading it, is that you have that power inside of you to do some extraordinary things. And you don't have to have fictional abilities in order to do that. I myself grew up in a very, not privileged background. I had free and reduced lunches my entire life. I wore garage sale clothing. I started out from very humble beginnings. My dad worked tirelessly as a mechanic and still does. So I did not have things easy. I worked 2 jobs when I was 15. And I had said this when I went back I had the privilege of speaking at my own high school. I went back and I told them that it's a tiny town, a rural town in Illinois. My town had 200 people, so barely, it doesn't even constitute a town, really. And I was surrounded by cornfields, so they're all farmers and in it. So it's a very rural, tight-knit community. But I went back and I said, okay, guys, I'm from here. I'm from here, and I didn't even have, I didn't even grow up on one of the farms where some of those families do very well. I had, some difficulties. It wasn't the same as everyone else. But guess what? You can do extraordinary things. When I was younger, I was an avid reader. Never then did I think that I would be able to write a book and get it traditionally published. And I tell my kids all the time, I have a first grader and a sixth grader, and I try to encourage them and tell them, you should not be playing those video games all the time. No, but I do say that. You're over your allotted time, but basically, my oldest, he really wants to be some kind of inventor or engineer or something. I'm like, then do it. Then do it. There's nothing standing in your way. You just have to do it. Because I worked my way. I know I came from nothing. And so I worked my way up through high school, getting good grades. Did my parents push me to get good grades even? No, they didn't. They were very proud of me just to get average grades, but I pushed myself to get straight A's because I wanted to go to college. And I knew I wanted to do something awesome. And so then I got to college and I pushed myself even further. And I, made sure that, getting into college, I got every scholarship and grant I could because my parents couldn't afford to send me. And so then once in college, I worked all through college. So I held a job and I worked through my schoolwork and I got straight A's again. And I didn't do that for anyone else but me because I wanted to make something happen. Again, I don't think then I really knew what I wanted to make happen. But I did something. I graduated with an elementary education degree, and I ended up coming back to Nebraska with my soon-to-be husband. Now we've been married for a long time. It's been 15 years now, together for 17 and a half. Oh my goodness, wow. That went fast. And so I came back here and I'm like, I was a teacher, I got my master's degree. So then I went on and I did something else for myself. I was a teacher and I wasn't satisfied with what I knew about reading education. There had to be something more because I was missing something. I didn't feel like I was really making a difference in the reading area. And isn't that what is most important about education? If you don't have the reading down, then nothing else matters. So I went back to school while my husband was in law school. I went back to school and earned my master's degree. That was hard. Both of us being in school and newlyweds. But again, I made it through, and eventually I was a reading specialist, and then I realized I needed to be a stay-at-home mom once I had our first child. He had some medical needs. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and it was then, I was still a voracious reader. It was then that I realized, what, I still want to do something. I do have this great education. I still had accomplished way more than I'd ever set out to. But there was something else I really needed to do. I knew I could do something more. And that's kind of, I guess, when you come down to the nitty-gritty of this book. Even the Kirkus review said the same thing. It's, at the end, you figure out that you have the ability to create your own reality. And I don't mean pushing water or retracting the bookshelves, but it's up to you to create whatever reality you want. I sat down and my husband was working really late hours, and that's when I started writing my first novel. And I eventually completed it. I think it took me 10 months. And now when I was writing the sequel, Enigma, I drafted 52,000 words in 19 days. Because that story was in me and I needed to get it out. And it says important things, one of which that anybody who reads this, is my hope, is they'll walk away and be encouraged somehow, some way. And I guess that's my long story to one of the hidden themes in the book. Kind of comes from my own life. That, it's up to you to create your reality. And if you want to do it, you can do it. So my dream of being traditionally published and on bookstore shelves like in Barnes & Noble and being in libraries has come true. And I was going to share with you just a few little bits of Josie's story. So then you get a feel for where she's starting from. Hey, did you hear me? My boyfriend Tate asked. His chestnut hair didn't even budge in the quick breeze sifting through the school's outdoor cafeteria. It wasn't his best feature. I'm ready to move forward in our relationship, to take it to the next level, but I don't think you are. My gut nodded. His action figure hair was breaking up with me on my birthday. I folded my clammy hands. I'd seen public breakups, but this was my first as an active participant. I'd side-eyed my friends Charles and Lauren. Charles Lauren is my husband's name. Across the table. Lauren had stopped mid-chew of her hummus-dipped carrot. Charles paused with his sandwich halfway to his open mouth. I felt like I was wearing Princess Leia buns to a Star Trek convention. That'd be very wrong, by the way. Tate shuffled his feet in front of our bench, waiting. Pulling in alongside, I took a moment to think about the response. I knew name-calling wouldn't do much good, so I settled on calling him out. You mean I won't put out, so you're moving on to the next girl who will. Tate's face flamed red. Did I have to say it that way? No, but come on, he was dumping me on my birthday. Total jerk move. Tate stood, his thumbs tucked in his pockets, and his face returned to its normal tan hue. It's not just the physical stuff. You're different, Josie. Distant. It's for the best, for both of us. Seriously? Wow. Friends? He finally asked. Friends? No. His tongue had been down my throat a few nights ago, and I didn't just let anyone do that. Whatever, Tate. He walked past me, and that was that. My first real relationship was over. Surprisingly, I felt like I could breathe easier because I wouldn't have the pressure of being a girlfriend anymore. But I had managed to defy the high school social ladder. At least for a few months, I, Josie Harper, had succeeded at being a science-loving, Trekkie dork-to-the-core girlfriend to a popular guy who literally didn't know the difference between Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Flies. And they didn't think it could be done. Lauren and Charles leaned toward me, both of them waiting for details. Lauren still hadn't resumed crunching. Well, I didn't have the energy to dish, so I turned away from the table. The relationship was over, and it was still exhausting. Leave it to Tate to make this as painful as possible. I watched him stroll off like he didn't have a care in the world. No one spoke, but really, what was there to say? Happy birthday to you! My best friend Hannah's soprano voice and dark curls bounced on the balmy Florida air, cutting into the awkward silence. She skipped among the tables toward me, carrying a familiar teal box. I glanced back, across the table to our usual lunchmates who had just witnessed my humiliation. Charles and Lauren made the cut-it motion across their throats. I agree with those two. Please don't. I moaned at Hannah. It's been a crap day. Hannah's hazel eyes scrunched up in confusion as she positioned the box in front of me. Cupcakes. I welcomed whatever sugar euphoria they could provide me, but I didn't think they could improve my mood. They were a bittersweet reminder of the day's significance. How is your birthday bad already? It's only noon. She sat next to me, facing the street, and I turned so both our backs were to the school. Conversations resumed among our friends behind us. Thank you for that keen observation, Wesley Crusher. I don't know if you guys know that. That's Star Trek Next Generation. I forced my voice to lilt up with enthusiasm, but the pathetic Star Trek jab hung in the air. I peeked at my phone. The exact time of my birth was technically 3 minutes ago, so maybe the rest of the day will be better. Josie, she whispered, seriously, what's wrong? Is it your dad? Hannah and I had latched onto each other the first day of sophomore year when we were both new to Naples and Oceanside High. We hadn't let go since. We basically knew everything about each other's past, like she knew I hadn't seen my dad in more than a month and that my family was fragile. Hannah drew in a breath next to me. I wasn't about to make eye contact with her. She could read me like nobody else. She'd asked what was wrong. Well, where to begin? You want the rundown? She nudged me with her shoulder. Yeah. Okay, I continued despite the hollow feeling filling my stomach. 1, my dad hasn't called, and I doubt he's coming home. Nice. Thanks a lot, Dad. Way to be there. 2, the lab assistant job I landed for the summer fell through. They left me a message during second block. Hannah groaned. I had been looking forward to that job. I needed that internship. It would have been perfect for the college applications and to let me escape this town. Because for the love of Con, I needed some space. I'd been on a tight leash since the day I was born, and an acceptance to an out-of-state university was my ticket to freedom. Case in point, the National Physics Honor Award. That was a biggie, and I wasn't complaining about that. The flippin' vice president of the country, yes, it was that big, would be hand-delivering my award in less than a week. Heck, that alone should have nabbed me this internship. Damn it. I side-glanced at Hannah. I didn't think she would be fully support me on anything college-related. Any conversation of where we were going for school, well, Hannah was not a fan. Because of my brainy ways, there was no way would we end up at the same place. Swallowing a lump in my throat, I tried to change the subject. And 3, Tate just broke up with me. He what? Hannah screeched and jumped up from the cement bench, whirling to face me head on. Her cheer skirt gave the guys behind her a 1-second show. I thought things were going well, and he knew it was your birthday. She paced in front of me, muttering and swearing. The interesting ways in which she vowed to F up Tate's face made me smile, despite the tears that continued to push at the back of my eyes. After a particularly colorful threat that involved Tate and his beloved man parts, Hannah sat back down and tore into the box. She pushed a cupcake toward me. So, no boyfriend, no job, no dad. Well, look at it this way. Now you have even more reason to make a wish. She ripped into a package of candles, shoved one to the cupcake frosted in the image of Sheldon Cooper. That's from Big Bang Theory. Plus, now you're back on the market for the party tonight. She passed the cupcakes around the table. Let's turn this birthday around. She was a cheerleader on the field and off, an eternal optimist, sometimes annoyingly so. Lauren whooped in agreement. Charles slid a lighter toward the box, and Hannah's enthusiasm ignited poor Sheldon's whole face. It might have killed her to walk into Cake, Pie, and Shy Cafe and order cupcakes decorated with the entire cast of Big Bang Theory. She caught me smiling and winked. True best friend. Thanks, guys. The yellow flame flickered. Hannah whispered, make a wish. My friends watched me, so I didn't want to scoff at the silly birthday tradition. Wishes? Please. Wishes were right up there with Rudolph and Santa doing a sleigh drive-by, or the Easter Bunny delivering eggs. And no, it wasn't my statistical analysis or scientific surety that told me so. Oh, I'd made wishes, thousands upon thousands of them, but none of them brought back my brother. When Hannah had asked about my craptastic day, I hadn't brought up missing Nick, but I did miss him. I wish my brother were here with me now. With him by my side, I wouldn't feel so out of place, so different. Josie, if you don't make that wish soon, Sheldon Cooper is going to melt like the wicked witch from Oz. No, there's no point in wishing. If I wanted results, I'd have to achieve them for myself. I wish for choice. Choice was attainable. Well, maybe. With all the rules and restrictions from my mom, I was pretty limited in the whole choosing department. But the 17th birthday marked me one day closer to independence, to college, to being who I wanted to be without reservation. If nothing else, when my 18th birthday rolled around, this would be in my grasp. I smothered my own smile. See, a wish could come true with the proper parameters. The flame disappeared with barely a blow. My friends clapped, and I was already starting to feel better. They were sweet for trying to make my day special. Everyone dove into the iced deliciousness, Charles, of course, grabbing for the punny cupcake and making a gross tongue swipe across her frosted face. Pig. I broke off a corner of mine, savored the equal parts of vanilla cake and smooth, sugary frosting. A rumble yanked our attention to the street as a motorcycle pulled up directly in front of us, the April sun reflecting off the red lacquer. Our crew, along with every other student in the courtyard, stared at the biker's broad chest encased in blue tee, tan arms bunching up as he throttled the bike down. Yummy, Hannah said, and I don't mean the cupcake. Another bike rolled up between the red one and the curb. A black crotch rocket, black helmet, black tee, and a whole lot of muscle. Whoa. Maybe my birthday won't be so bad after all, I murmured. I glanced down at the "May the mass times acceleration be with you." May the force be with you. Top. As I straightened the words across my chest, I licked my lips, checking for leftover frosting. In case the motorcycle guy looked my way, I needed to at least be presentable. Hannah gasped and hit my hand. You didn't happen to wish for a hot dude, did you? Both riders cut their engines, kicked down the stands, and shifted to take off their helmets. I watched the guy on the black bike. I definitely had an image of what the perfect guy under that helmet would look like to make my birthday wish come true. I wanted him to have longish hair, like a dark-haired young Thor, not old school trying too hard Jonas Brothers long. Light blue eyes, some scruff, not thick. More scruff meant too old. And a tattoo. Pain shot through my eyes and magma must have taken the place of my brain. Nausea swept through me from head to toe, leaving a cold sweat on my forehead. It all happened in a matter of seconds. What the... As soon as I recognized that I might actually yak in front of the entire student body and the hot biker guy, the urge was gone. No more migraine. I felt fine. I wiped my forehead and refocused on the guy in black. His arm flexed as he pulled off his helmet, and the sleeve of his t-shirt tightened over his sculpted biceps. Dark, wavy locks fell into the guy's face. The rest of his hair skimmed his broad shoulders. Holy hotness. He tucked his helmet under his arm, ran his hand over his face, then leaned down to look in the side view mirror. The other rider, who'd already pulled off his helmet, almost fell from his bike laughing. Mr. Hottie scanned the courtyard. Who was he looking for? He swung his leg over his seat and continued to survey each table of students until he got to us. The guy stared at me. Oh, he must have caught me checking him out. His eyes locked on mine, and he strode forward to imaginary music that played in my head. Each of his steps matched the beat of the song. Each step held confidence as he moved with the purpose and grace of a uniformed Marine. When he was about 12 feet from me, I noticed the edge of a tattoo peeking out from under his sleeve in the same place as Nick's had been. The stranger drew closer. Black lashes outlined his brilliant blue eyes. The contrast between his lashes and irises was startling, stunning. But there was something behind the eyes. A familiarity? The lingering frosting turned sweeter in my mouth. I swallowed. I didn't know him, did I? 4 steps away. His beautiful eyes widened as something flickered across his face. He halted abruptly, furrowed brow and narrowed eyes. He stared me down. "Shh," he said slowly. Was he talking to me? I checked out my table thinking maybe one of my friends was doing something that had earned the hot guy's curse. Nope. They were all just gawking at the dynamic duo like they were Batman and Robin. Come on, the sidekick said as he nudged the hot guy. The dude broke eye contact with me and they sauntered past our table. I rubbed my temples, trying to ease the dull headache building. The guy had cursed when he saw me. What did I do? Who the hell was he?
Hi, everybody. It's really cool to be here. Thank you, Erin, for inviting us both, and thanks to the Heritage Museum for having us here. It's pretty awesome. I'm going to be reading a little bit from my first book today, Control, which is a young adult science fiction. It has a sequel, which is called Catalyst, and it's also the end of the series that just came out this last March. But before I read, I was just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I started writing about 5 years ago in earnest as far as fiction goes, but my desire to write started probably a long, long time ago before that. I remember, I think I was in 3rd grade, when I decided that I was going to try to write a novel. And I was reading all the time. I mean, one of my favorite things was to just take a pile of books, go to my room with a snack, which I still do now, and just read the same books over and over again, or get my books out from the library. Some of my favorites were like the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. I read those gazillions of times. I've read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, maybe 25 times. And at the time, third grade, so I was thinking, well, okay, I can do this. It can't be that difficult to write a book, right? So I thought I would write something really dramatic, and I would write about a young girl who was suffering from like a terrible illness. And so I took a piece of paper and I folded it over, and I wrote on the front, Joanne, in this big scripty, handwriting, because that was going to be the girl's name. And I opened up the piece of paper, and I started writing the book. And it was something like, there once was a girl named Joanne. She was 11 years old, and then she died. And that was the end of the book. So I kind of stared at that for a while, and I thought, this is so hard. This is so much harder than I thought it was going to be. I really had no concept in my mind outside of like, I just want to do this, about how to do it. So so my dreams of writing a book were kind of shattered in third grade, and I didn't think very much more about it for a long time. But I kept reading pretty voraciously. What I found that I was really good at, actually, once those years started to sort of tumble by, was I was really good at science. I loved science a lot. I used to read these Jacques Cousteau books in my parents' study over and over again. I loved biology. And when I got to middle school and high school, I did really well in those classes. They were easy. I mean, they were just fun and easy to do, whereas writing essays for me was not as easy. And I don't know how much of that came from me being inside my head and reading so much, maybe growing up in an immigrant family where English was spoken at home, but maybe not as perfectly as I would hear in school. It was not really easy for me to write. When I was in high school, I started journaling a lot, thanks to an English teacher who recommended we all start writing journals, and I started voraciously writing. I probably kept writing for years and years after that. But once I got to college, I thought, I love science, and I liked helping people, so it made sense for me to pursue medicine, which is what I did. And so with a very singular, kind of drive in college, anybody who's pre-med sort of knows what that's like. You're just constantly getting your classes done. You're studying like crazy all the time. I got into medical school after, getting everything that I need to get done. I actually took a year off between medical school and college, and I did research at a laboratory at my college for a good solid year, but I had been doing research before that. I continued the research into medical school. I was doing bench work. I was studying frogs at the time, and the subject matter of the lab was really kind of how frogs become boy frogs versus girl frogs. So it was like endocrine and the sexual differentiation of an animal, and really what, from the molecular level, like how does that happen? It was pretty fascinating stuff. I wasn't very nice to a lot of tadpoles in my day. So I got into medical school. I started at New York University, and I was there studying like crazy. But, in the back of my mind, I kept on thinking and always remembering, like, oh, it'd still be nice to write a book someday. But that ship had sailed. I wasn't good at writing. I was good at science. This is where I needed to be. And once I started practicing medicine, and I was practicing at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, as an attending physician, I started finding, if you talk to anybody who works in healthcare, you'll find that it's actually a very stressful work environment. I mean, you get to do a lot of good, but at the same time, there's a lot of stress involved. And some people are really good at letting go of that stress, and some people are not. And I think that one of the ways that I found was kind of helpful for me was I didn't even plan this. It really just, I was taking care of somebody. It was a very difficult situation for me because the patient was very young and he was dying. And I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this patient, and I just started to write about it. There was no plan. It just kind of happened. I just wanted to get it off my chest because it was just weighing on my mind so much. And I wrote this, and I remember thinking there were these journals that doctors read all the time, And sometimes they have these personal essays from doctors about what it's like to be a doctor or what it's like to be actually a patient and be on the flip side of that. And so it was, I think, 3 in the morning. I had written the essay. It took me maybe an hour or two to write the essay. And then that same hour, I just submitted it to the Annals of Internal Medicine because I was sleep deprived and not thinking clearly. Like, maybe I should have my husband, who's also a doctor, read this. Maybe I should proofread it first. I just sent it off, and I just kind of assumed it would get rejected because that's usually what happens. And lo and behold, it did not. It got accepted. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I actually wrote something that people might actually want to read and may touch some people. And so I thought, I should try to do this some more. And so I wrote another essay, and that one got rejected. And then I wrote another essay, and that one got rejected. And then I wrote another one. It's somewhere around there I was getting the hint that maybe this wasn't for me. And so again, I sort of continue on with my career. And at that point in time, I moved to Omaha. And so this was about 10 years ago. And my husband and I and our family, we moved to Omaha for work reasons. And I started working at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And we decided that we would have another child. And so I gave birth to my youngest daughter. And it was around that time that I started randomly writing poetry. And I like to blame this on post-pregnancy hormones because I don't really know why. I'm pretty sure I remembered the moment that it kind of happened. I was in my office and I was pumping milk and I had a baby at home and I wanted to be with the baby, but I was at work and I wanted to be at work and it was just lots of different emotions. And I was staring at this computer screen, wishing it was a baby and not a computer screen, and I started to write poetry. It just kind of happened. And around that time, there was another group that was bringing together doctors and writers, and it was called the 7 Doctors Project. And I'd heard that they'd had a session, and I thought, this would be kind of interesting to write, and it would actually be a more formal experience. Because up until then, I kind of figured, well, I have a degree in medicine. I have a, bachelor's degree, and I majored in biology. I kept thinking I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wasn't allowed to, but I needed to take a class to do it, and I thought, well, maybe I should take this workshop. And so the workshop happened, and I ended up getting some poetry published, and I ended up getting some more essays published, and then I dove into fiction, not knowing what I was doing, because the workshop didn't teach you how to write. You kind of brought things to them and they looked at it and gave you feedback, but nobody taught me how to write a book. I didn't know what I was doing, and so I just drove in and I wrote a book, I think it was like a 90,000 word novel in a month. And I remember at the time, I just had this crazy idea and I just sort of went with it. And after I finished it, I decided, well, maybe I could get this published, but I didn't realize at the time how terrible it was, of course. And so I started to learn more and more and more, and then I decided, well, maybe I'll try writing another one. So then I wrote another one. And I thought maybe I could try to get that one published. And the process of doing that is the traditional way is you find a literary agent, and then the literary agent, if they like what they like and they want to represent you, you sign a contract, and then they take it and they shop it to publishers. In New York City, all over the country. So at that point in time, I think I decided that I would write a third novel, and that was Control. And when I wrote this novel, I had some of my friends reading, and some of them are physicians at the Med Center who are close friends of mine now. And they said, you've done something different. Like you're getting better. I mean, you went from being okay to this actually has a plot. And the characters are really, they make sense, and they have a lot of depth. And I was learning so voraciously because I just assumed I didn't know anything, that anytime someone had something to teach me, and I learned a lot online, to be honest, I drank it in and I made corrections and I strived to be better and better. So at the end, I was able to sell Control to Penguin, and then Catalyst followed. But I think one of the biggest lessons in this entire kind of crazy journey that started in 3rd grade was the idea that, in life you're sort of allotted one thing, major thing that you're good at. Maybe you're supposed to be the career that you're meant to have. And if you're not good at something, it's just not destiny. If you're not good at something, you shouldn't pursue it. And I think that I really proved that theory completely wrong, because what I find is that what you're not good at, a lot of times it means that you just don't know enough, and that you need a passion for it, and you need to really dedicate time and energy to it to get better. So I think that there is a truth that some people are born naturally very good at things and are very gifted at things. And I think that a lot of times that is not the case, and it doesn't mean that that person can't be capable of good things as well. I think having a dual career in the arts as well as medicine has been just an incredible blessing for me. And I think anybody who's in their job, no matter what they're doing in their life, can find a lot of joy in the arts, not necessarily in writing, but they should also understand that just because they don't think that they're naturally good at it doesn't mean they shouldn't try. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about myself, and I was going to read a little bit of the first chapter of Control for you guys. I have blotted out several parts just for the sake of time, so I am kind of picking and choosing, but the story itself, it takes place in Nebraska and Iowa, about 150 years in the future, during a time when all genetic manipulation is considered to be illegal. So if you have normal DNA that you're born with, you're okay, but if somebody goes in there and tinkers with it, you are not allowed to exist, because they don't want that to enter the gene pool. They don't want that to screw up the natural order of things. And so my main character, who you will meet very soon, is a little bit of a teenage scientist, and she has to use her brain to kind of reunite her family after some pretty terrible things happen. So that's roughly what it's about, without giving away too many spoilers. It is a bit of a medical thriller. It is, there's a hefty dose of romance in here. There is a lot of adventure. So as Tonya was saying, about a third of my readers are adult, and of my children's readers, about a third of them are boys. So, all right, on that note, I'm going to dive in. Chapter 1. Maybe if I move a little slower, I can prevent the inevitable. Time will freeze and it'll be easy to pretend we're not moving again. I don't want to budge from the roof of this cruddy building. The door to the stairwell creaks open. Dad sees the lump of me at the edge of the roof, unmoving. Dark clothes, dark frizzle hair. I am depression personified. Here you are, Zelia. I told you to stay off the roof, Dad says, his voice scratchy with fatigue. I jerk to my feet. Sorry. Traffic is about to get bad. Let's go. Okay. I cross the gravel roof quickly, trying to catch his shadow slipping down the stairwell to our apartment. Our old apartment. This place is nothing to me anymore. Dust bunnies lurk in the angles of the hallways, kicked around by my maelstrom of moving activity. Inside the small bedroom, I push my duffel bag to the door. Just one bag, crammed to the brim. It's not much. After years of moving every 10 months, you give up amassing anything larger than your fist. Basically, heart-sized or smaller is all I can take. Around the empty room, remnants of the past haunt the surfaces. Rings from juice bottles covered the desk. Picture screens glow in big white rectangles where photographs have been deleted. I still had 8 weeks of rental left on those images, the latest telescope images of the M16 Nebula, beaches and mountains from the 20th century untouched by humans. So pretty, so gone. Down the hallway, I smell my sister walk by. This month, it's Persian Frisia. Dad says nothing about her pricey scent downloads. He also hasn't commented on the string of boys popping up with alarming regularity on her holo. Unlike me, he's not bothered by Dilia's flourishing teenage hormonal nirvana. In fact, she's chatting up one of her undeserving male friends as she skips down the stairs. The glowing screen hovers at an angle in front of her, a projected image from an earring stud that everybody wears. It's practically impossible to live without our holos. They're like a sixth sense, with limitless connections and information. Dill got her first holo stud 6 months ago when she turned 13 and barely turns it off now. Within the green rectangle, a boy's face is shadowed under a hoodie, and he's wearing an oily smile. I follow her downstairs and join Dad in front of our dilapidated townhouse. I tell myself I won't miss the building's crunchy gravel roof or even the ancient ion oven that always zapped our food too much on the crispy side. There's no point of getting attached to the good or bad of wherever we live. Dad punches in an order for a mag pod on one of the metal cones decorating each street corner. I drop the bag from my tired shoulder and massage my neck, looking up. Out here, the sky isn't sky, but one continuous sheet of painted blue, as if the whole town were built underneath a gigantic, endless table. In Naya, what used to be Nebraska and Iowa, we get the fake blue underside of the agriplane. Up above, it's got grain fields of burnished gold and a sun so bright it doesn't look real. Moving from state to state sucks. In history class, we read about a unified nation hundreds of years ago, where you could live wherever you wanted with any lifestyle you chose. No intense border scrutiny and screening tests, no pledges to adhere to the morals and dress codes mandated by each state. But after the country couldn't agree on religion or politics or how to wipe your butt the right way, they divided into clustered states. Ames, Ilmo, Naya, Ox, each stewing with their happy ideals, all of them unified under a federal government weaker than my left pinky. Dad thought Naya would be a unique place to live. Of all the states we lived in, I almost looked forward to this one. He said that we would go up to the agriplane and have a picnic someday, but the picnic never happened. And now when I stare up at that false sky, held aloft by synthetic, spidery supports and blockish buildings, I don't want to go up there anymore. They say it used to be sunny and bright here, but now the agriplane steals it from everyone. There's never a moon to look forward to, or a dawn. At least it'll be a change to see the sun again, which reminds me. What state are we moving to, I ask. Dad doesn't answer until Dill pokes him hard on the shoulder. We're, maybe Alaska. Alaska's another country, remember? It seceded 4 years ago, Dill points out. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't actually know. He breathes and sleeps work. No matter the little consequences of state politics or the geothermal catastrophes of what's left of California. Right, he mutters. We both watch him suspiciously. Usually we have 1 week's notice and a detailed to-do list for the move, but this time it was 12 hours and Dad is more scatterbrained as usual. Well, as soon as we know, I will see what labs I can work in, I say brightly. 4 years ago, Dad decided that I would take a hollow molecular bio course. I was going through a poetry phase and balked, but as usual, he knew me best. I love my lab work now. He pulls strings to find me after-school work in every new town. I spent all my free time running protocols alongside postdocs and grad students, learning all I could, hungry for it. There have only been 3 consistencies in my life: Dad, Dill, and lab work. No more lab work, he snaps. My body shrinks into a smaller space. What? You're too unbalanced. Life isn't about plasma vectors and bioaccelerants. It's about dealing with people. You're going to take states history and political science courses, and I will reprogram your hollow channels when we get settled. History? Politics? Is he kidding? I wish I could argue, but Dad's face is stony and confident. My gram of rebellion combusts like pure magnesium. Well, he's probably right. He always knows what I like even before I know myself. I thought I wouldn't like molecular bio, but it's a second language for me now. Or at least it was. I mope aggressively, but Dad is too busy studying the metal cone's flashing display. With one touch, it accesses your info and account. Even if you can't afford a mag pod, a nasty public pod will come pick you up. If you're a little kid lost, press a finger, and it brings a mag pod that will take you to the police or your school or home, depending on the time of day. They're more reliable than the sun rising and setting. On cloudy days, even the sun lets you down. A dull-looking mag pod slows down in front of us, the color of old teeth, and sporting a triangle-shaped dent in the back. I've never seen this one before, but like all the mag pods we get, it looks abused and stinky. Get your bags, girls. Let's go. Dad's eyes are hooded and dark. His late nights working have etched deep lines into his face. I jump into the driver's seat before Dill can protest. At least put it on auto, Zal, she whines. Why? I like driving. Most people put their mags on auto. You just punch in your destination and you go. But going manual is so fun. It's like a dying art. You really feel like you're part of the mag pod and you sense its personality. All the magic of technology disappears and it's just you and the machine. No games and no illusions. Okay, so where to this time, I say, feigning a good attitude. Well, let's go north. No, west. I can almost hear the dice roll of our future clinking in his brain. I don't like it. I like having a plan, and Dad always has a plan. The other mags zip around us, and the hum from the metal mag lines in the street is the only sound we hear. I'm concentrating so hard on swerving in and around the slower mags that my vision goes blurry around the edges. Dad touches my arm. Breathe, Zelia. And I remember, the way I must remember 100 times a day. I suck in a huge breath, and then a few more big ones to make up for my distracted moments. My stupid affliction. Dad says it's called Ondine's curse. On its own, my body will only take a few piddly, shallow breaths a minute. And if I don't consciously breathe more deeply or frequently when I'm excited or running or doing anything besides imitating a rock, my brain won't reflexively take over enough to keep me alive. Just add it to the list of other annoyances in my life, the non-fatal ones, that is. Why don't you just put on your necklace, Dill suggests. It scares me when you don't wear it. She gives me a worried look, but it doesn't convince me. My titanium necklace is safely tucked away in my pocket. When I wear it around my neck, the pendant signals an implanted electrode in my chest to trigger normal, healthy breaths every few seconds. It's great for sleeping, since dying every night is quite the inconvenience. But during the day, it feels like this invisible force yanking the air in and out of my body. You know I hate that thing when I'm awake, I say. When Dill was little, she used to fetch it for me all the time. As soon as she'd leave the room, I would take it off. It was a cat and mouse game that we played. She respects my decision not to wear it when I'm awake, but she still brings it up every day. My heart dreads the day she stops reminding me. I twist the T-bar to maneuver around the other mags now that we're in the center of town. The 3D signs are everywhere, poking out from the sleek metal facades of the buildings, beckoning us to buy their wares. We drive under a giant holographic arm holding a purple fizzy drink the size of a trash can. Another mag swerves a little too close, and I veer to the right with a jerk. I'm distracted by an octopus ad with tentacles curving towards me when Dad puts an anxious hand on mine. A bright red magpod far away in the opposite lane bobbles unsteadily like a cork being dragged through the water. This is like a horrible hollow game I'm losing. I go left, and the red magpod goes left. I go right, and now it's too close. I can't get out of the way of this thing, and it's hurtling so impossibly fast towards us. Hold on, I yell, making one last jerk to the right. No! Dad throws his whole body over me. He grabs the T-bar, pushing it hard to the left instead, putting himself between us and the oncoming mag. I see his other hand pull an emergency detach lever by my leg, and in seconds we are flying in different directions, and my world is upside down, and I'm spinning so fast that the G-forces press my body painfully to the left side of the magpod. I can't see anything because white foam expands in milliseconds, surrounding my body and skull to cushion me from the inevitable impact. I spin, it seems, forever and ever, and pump the air into my lungs so fast I'm dizzy from hyperventilating. The crash. Where's the crash? It never comes. Everything is dark. My body can't move. The protective foam has mummified me into a single position, my hands still grasping the T-bar and my legs still on the oval footpads. Muffled voices speak above me. There's a crack of something breaking apart, and a sliver of dusky daylight penetrates my chemical cocoon. I suck in a breath of fresh air. The chunk of light grows and fills in with concerned faces of red uniformed medics. I gulp more air, ripping the foam away from my head. Chunks of it are still stuck in my hair, and finally hands pull me up and out, and the rest of the foam is removed in large, falling white masses. Ma'am, are you okay? Do you have any injuries? One of the medics rattles out questions at me, but all I hear is yelling and sirens and the sound of panic. I try to stand, dizzy and nauseated. I dry heave from the foam fumes, and the spinning sensation in my head won't stop. You need to rest, miss. Another medic grabs my arm, and I shove him away hard, staggering. Dad, I croak. Delia. Oh, God. I look around wildly to find another piece of our magpod. Another group of people pull my sister, dazed, from her back section. They pry a huge piece of foam from her head as I run forward. Her curls are a mess, pointing every which way. She sees me immediately, and her eyes are so big, so doll-like, so wild. Where's Daddy? She shrieks. I turn around and bolt to the crowd of medics surrounding the rest of the wreckage. Our bags have exploded around the scene. My underwear and Dill's new pink dress lie on the ground, trodden upon by rescue workers. Huge pieces of the magpod shell are scattered everywhere. I push into the throng when I see two people pointing at something. A bloody rag lies several feet away from the crowd, right on the magnetic strip of the street. A shiny glint of gold peeps through the red. My head swims. No, it's not a rag. It's a hand. A man's mangled hand wearing my father's wedding ring. Breathe, Celia, breathe. But I can't. I can't because I'm screaming.